Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Brad Baych, creator of the Butcher Wizard YouTube channel, began his culinary journey at the age of 19 as a sauté cook at a steak restaurant in Oklahoma. Deciding to pursue his passion for food, he moved to Chicago to attend culinary school. After graduation, he worked in Dallas at a fine dining hotel and restaurant, then eventually returned to Oklahoma, where he married his high school sweetheart and started a family. He worked as a kitchen manager and became a culinary professor, teaching essential skills such as knife techniques, butchery, soups, and sauces. A move to South Carolina reignited his passion for butchery as he took a job at a local butcher shop. Brad created his Butcher Wizard YouTube channel to share his love for butchery and empower home cooks to tackle their own projects with confidence. His channel is absolutely amazing, by the way. I highly recommend it. His much anticipated book, Primal Cuts, a butcher's guide to selecting, preparing, and perfecting beef, is set to be released in the fall of 2025. With his insider knowledge, you will learn how to choose the best cuts for maximum flavor and tenderness, bringing your meat-centric meals to the next level with over 100 recipes and insider tips. Brad Baych, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited about today.
I've been looking forward to this for a long time. It's so weird, but I really do get a little bit starstruck when somebody that I've been following and watching for so long, I actually get to have a conversation with, which is quite cool. I actually just signed up for your Primal Cuts Club, which is fantastic. We just had our first meeting the other day. I got to see some of the other people in the club and get a sense of what you're doing, which is absolutely wonderful. And it's so needed in the community in this audience, which is largely, a low carbohydrate, ketogenic, or carnivore kind of an audience. We need exactly what you're teaching. And I think it's funny what we were talking about off air, where you never really imagined yourself being, an influencer in the health space, but here you are.
Hey, this is how things go, right? You start putting your stuff out on the internet, and you start putting your skills out there, and then who knows what's going to happen. So
yeah,
I'm just happy to be able to help anyone who wants to learn how to save money and cut meat themselves.
Well, you are super good at that, and you are just an absolute natural teacher. I understand that you spent some time in your career, like we said, the introduction, teaching other people those skills, and that carries through in your videos. You make them very entertaining and very educational at the same time, which is absolutely wonderful. And as I was reaching out to you to try to set this up, you actually told me that you were going to be trying the carnivore diet yourself as a little bit of an experiment, and you were going to be, kind of commenting on it along the way. And so that's part of our conversation today. I can't wait to chat with you about.
Absolutely, yeah. So I am in the thick of like week 2 of my carnivore diet experiment, and I'm going to look to you to also give me some tips and some things I did wrong, or things I did right, or things I can improve. Because week 1 was a little rough. Like, I have to admit, it was a little bit. I had electrolyte issues and some different challenges. The one thing I really like about the carnivore diet is, obviously, I do like meat. Like, I practice what I preach. I cut things. I cook. I eat meat. Like, that is a very big part of my life. So having a diet that only has meat is not that much of a challenge for me. Like, because I'm just into it. Like, I'm into all the different textures and flavors, all the different animals, like everything. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're, again, documenting your journey, and you have a carnivore coach. What is his name? Peter? Am I getting that right?
Yeah. It's Peter from Carnivore Coach International. Yeah.
Okay.
I connected with him on Facebook, and we kind of hit it off. And so it's, again, I'm taking every person's input that I can to do this a little bit better.
Well, that's very wise of you. You chose an amazing coach, by the way. I've already reached out to him to see if he would want to be on the show as well. And I'm so glad you recorded part of your conversation, because you got a sense of, some very common pitfalls in the first week. What you got a sense of, like, what coaching is like. He just, very gently gave you some ideas, some suggestions. He wasn't telling you what to do or how to do it. And I could tell that you have done your research. Like, what you're talking about when he would say something or explain how insulin works or the electrolyte thing. Like, it wasn't like new information to you. So I know you've done your research. So it was really cool to see, and really validating as well.
Yeah, I've always been. So I am a podcast person. So I am always have an earbud in listening to a podcast. And um, I've gone down the road of keto before. I've gone down like a lot of different diet roads. I actually had some pretty good success on keto, which was great. And that was kind of more meat based, and but that was several years ago. So I'm always interested in the topic, so I always want to learn a little bit more.
Yeah. And well, that's a very smart thing to do. And taking input from lots of different people will give you lots of different ideas. I'm very excited because you are basically almost to the day of the journey that I did 6.5 years ago when I did my own 30-day experiment, when I noticed that anxiety that I didn't think I had just kind of dropped out. And I didn't know what was going on. I had something really stressful happen, and I didn't have my normal stressed anxiety kind of reaction. I was really calm about it. And everybody calls it carnivore calm. And for me, it was about 10 to 12 days in, I want to say, maybe 2 weeks into the journey. And you're just right there. And having seen so many amazing carnivore journeys, I'm really excited for where you are and kind of have a little bit of an idea of what's in your future for you. And so I'm yeah, really excited to see how that pans out actually.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, I had the traditional struggles of week one. Week one was a little rough. I didn't take my electrolytes very seriously, I don't think. So I just kind of like did. I'm gonna have water. I'm gonna have beef, and then we had eggs, and that was pretty much what I had. And then that the first day was great. Second day, I really struggled, and after I hit some electrolytes after that, and I was good to go. And now I'm not even taking the electrolyte powders anymore. Like I'm just kind of going, and just kind of feels really, really natural.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really encouraging to hear that you're on the right track then. I would just continue doing that for sure. Just really intuitive, whatever sounds good. We always talk about like intuitive. This is the true intuitive eating. It's weird because like I don't normally crave pork, but one day I'll be like, man, I want some pork ribs. Or I don't really like fish, but just one day every 6 months, I'll be like, man, salmon sounds amazing. And it's interesting how the body is really intuitive and will tell you what nutrients it needs. And same with electrolytes, like you said, like sometimes I want electrolyte solution in my water and it tastes salty and amazing. And other times I'm like, yeah, it doesn't even sound good.
Yeah.
Uh,
I have a question for you about like, so I know there's a big like thing in the carnivore community about high fat meats, and like I crave low fat meats, and I don't know if that's because I have an excess amount of body fat, and then my body's using that. Hopefully, my body's using that fat and that energy, but like I I don't crave fattier meats. I'm craving right now. I'm craving more leaner meats. So I had a tenderloin steak the other night. I've had some shrimp. Like it just really feels like you're talking about intuitive eating. I really feel like my body's telling me what I need to eat. So what are your kind of thoughts on that?
That is an amazing question. Way to turn my podcast into me being the guest and answering all the questions. That's a great question. And I would 100% agree with you that the ultimate goal for most of us is to burn off our own body fat. One of the people in our space just did a talk that I attended, and he basically he'll ask his patients like, "What are you made of?" And people say like, "Well, I'm made of water. I've got muscle, which is protein. You've got quite a big amount of protein in your body. You've got fat, and for every pound of fat you have, that's 3,500 calories. And so you can multiply your body fat percentage by your weight to get an absolute number of how many calories of fat you have in the body. And even for like an emaciated Tour de France cyclist, it's going to be tens of thousands of calories. And for most of us, it could go up to 100,000 or 200,000 or 300,000. And, most of us don't like it and we want that gone anyway. And I think it's really telling that your body is craving more of the protein side of things and not as much of the fatty side of things. I would absolutely 100% agree with your assessment. And I would keep going down that path. Have the tenderloin, have the leaner cuts as long as you feel like you crave them. That might be different day to day or week to week. I notice sometimes that if I go too lean on a day before, say I have like an ice hockey game, I feel a little bit flat. So I like to do more of like a ribeye the night before, and I feel a lot better the next day for a ribeye. But that's you just kind of have to pay attention to that. So yes, I love your critical thinking on that, and I would not change that.
Okay, you're great because I said, I'm just trying to go with what I feel like sounds good, and that
Yeah.
you know I do have an advantage to the normal carnivore dieter because I have a freezer full of meat. So my refrigerator is full, everything's full of meat. So I pretty much have the pick of whatever I want to have, and it's just it's just what feels good, you know.
Perfect. Yep. Yep. I like to have 2 or 3 different proteins on hand, and I'll just like go to the fridge when it's dinner time and say like what looks good, what sounds good, and end up doing that or cook something fresh. So now you do have an advantage of having a full freezer. So let's talk about your personal story and how you decided to start doing the content that you do. I want to talk about some of the things that can be helpful, tricks and tips for people out there, especially regarding, the subprimal cuts that you talk about all the time. I want to talk about your book, and then we'll get into a little bit more of your carnivore journey as well. But let's start with how did you even start your channel to begin with?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel started. It's almost been 3 years. It's kind of crazy. I was I've been a stay-at-home dad for a long time, and then I decided I wanted to get back into teaching. So you said in your intro about me, I'm been a culinary school teacher. I have been to culinary school myself. I've spent my entire life in a restaurant kitchen. So I decided like I really wanted to have that piece of teaching again. So so I basically just decided like I'm just gonna throw some stuff on YouTube. And I started with meat butchery and basically what you could buy at Costco, and then cut down yourself and save a little bit of money. I don't know if it's luck or skill. I don't know what it was, but my 8th video went crazy on YouTube. So I got over 1 million views in like 4 days, and that's kind of what sprung my channel up. So my first video was a ribeye video. So how to take a ribeye you got from Costco, cut it up, and how you could save money doing that. And then that video did unbelievably awesome. And then I did that with a tenderloin. I did it with just everything I could find at Costco, and the rest is kind of history. So we're up to 170 videos or so, and as of the recording today, I'm really close to 300,000 subscribers on YouTube. So it's been a crazy journey.
It's just so cool. You're on the right track when what you have and what you can provide meets what is needed out there. This is clearly something that's needed. People are spending, 20, 25, 35. There's a store down the street with the ribeyes are like $25, $35 a pound. It's so expensive. It's not prohibitive, but for some people it is. And if you can find any hack to make that a little bit less expensive and more accessible for people, we need to push in that direction. And your content really does that really well.
Well, thank you. And just kind of as the subscribership grew and the viewership grew, just taking more seriously, and then it became my job. And then it's just fun to be able to like just share things from your kitchen and get to a lot of people. So
yeah, I love that. The ribeye video was fantastic. It was one of the first times I even considered that you can buy the CryoSeal package anywhere at Sam's Club, at Costco. You told us about the U.S. Food store, the Chef's Food Store with U.S. Foods, which for some cities they have as an amazing resource as well. Luckily, here in Salt Lake City, we've got one. Let's start with the subprimal cuts and what they are, and why we should be looking at investing in those.
Yeah, so basically, so when they break down a cow, they break it down into 9 primal cuts, and then everything that comes off of those primal cuts is a subprimal cut. So it's really important to understand kind of how the cow is broken down, and that helps you find kind of, it's like everything else. You got to find the little hacks. You got to find the little like nuances in these different primal cuts. So like my favorite, I always talk about, is the chuck. So the chuck is where you can find the best cuts, in my opinion, for the lowest price. So the chuck is broken down into some subprimal cuts, the chuck roll and the shoulder clod, and some, those are great cuts of meat. So from the chuck roll, you can get a Denver steak, a chuck eye steak, chuck roast, ground chuck, all that stuff. And from the shoulder clod, you can get flat iron steaks and terrace majors. I know I'm throwing a bunch of stuff at you, but it's like, for me, for the most bang for your buck, that is where you want to focus your time and your money. Because you're getting a really quality steaks and quality meat, but for a lower price.
Okay, excellent. I was just at my local store down the street, and I was able to find the chuck roast. All the other things you mentioned were not available. Can you explain why?
Yeah, because so what happens to a lot of so for the chuck roll, let's take the chuck roll as that's very popular right now. Most often, grocery stores and Costco and Sam's, all these places, they would take a chuck roll and they will cut it into chuck roasts, the whole thing into chuck roast. It's a 22 pound piece of meat. Now, that's the most popular thing for them. People who go into a store expect to see a chuck roast, they know what to do with it. They may not know what to do with a Denver steak, or may never heard of a Denver steak or a chuck eye steak. Well, but the problem is, so for the grocery store, it's best for them just to make what's going to sell the most. So what's the most popular? Now, for the rest of us who watch my channel and watch other butcher channels and know the thing, like a chuck eye is basically a ribeye that is stuck in the chuck. So it is, you can get a ribeye cut for a chuck price. So you can save a ton of money that way. Your Denver steak is kind of like a New York strip steak. And that, through a little bit of cutting and a little bit of knowledge, you can really get a high quality cut for like $4 or $5 a pound, depending on where you're at in the country. So, and you can get your chuck roast and your ground chuck. So I'm just trying to say, like, even just in one sub primal cut, there are lots of nuances that your normal grocery store won't have.
Gotcha. Okay, and that's the normal price of a chuck roll is somewhere in that ballpark. The $4 to $5 is kind of what I've seen around here. Where again, the chuck roast that I'm seeing, which is kind of the more basic part, if it's marked on sale, it might be like $7 to $8. So again, that savings is quite significant.
It's even savings off of just a chuck roast, which I think is like the easiest thing for a grocery store to do is that they take that chuck roll and they slice it like this. Like they just slice it into 2 inch, 3 inch portions, and that's the easiest thing for them. It's like I said, they do whatever will sell the quickest and for the most money. So it's up to the individual person to do a little bit more research. And if you really want to get into it, try to find those nuances.
Got it. Okay. The other thing that I liked the most about breaking down my own, and again, to be fair, I haven't done a chuck roll yet. I've got so many chuck roasts in my freezer. I'm trying to get my freezer's one way. Everything goes in and nothing comes out. I'm trying to like get everything out of my freezer to restock it. So I haven't done a chuck roll yet, but I have done strips and I've done the ribeye. The thing that I like the most about it, and you may have already found this on a carnivore diet, but what I noticed with myself and a lot of people on carnivore diet is we are limited on the amount of meat we can consume. Like I know the amount of meat I can consume. It's weird because we'll go to a Brazilian all-you-can-eat steak restaurant, and I think I'm going to be there for 6 hours just tearing this place apart. And inevitably, in like 40 minutes, I can't even like look at the food that was delicious a minute ago. It's like an aversion. For me, it's about a pound and a half. I can go to a pound and a half, and that's when I reach this point of satiety that even if I've got like an annoying amount of food left, like maybe 2 more bites, it's either going to go in a storage container, it's going to my dog. Like I can't break past that window. And so, of course, like breaking down your own food, you can control everything. How thick do you like your steaks? How much fat do you like your steaks? You are not craving the fat right now. Maybe you would trim a little bit more off, but you can get a lot closer to the exact right amount that you need versus, trying to guess and then having like weird amounts of leftovers left over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's also one of the big things of what we do is the customization is tremendous. So you can like get as much customization as you want. Like you can cut thin steaks, I can cut thick steaks. I like if you're talking about a ribeye, so you want to do a ribeye. Well, we can cut a couple of prime ribs. So we have something for an entire get together, a whole entire family. We can cut thin ribeyes. We can cut thick ribeyes. You can do whatever you want. You can even take the ribeye cap off and roll that up and make a ribeye cap steak if you want to get like totally decadent. Like, there's so much opportunity for you if you learn how to cut the meat yourself that you may not even find like at the grocery store.
Yeah, awesome. You mentioned another cut that I had never seen before going to the U.S. Chef's Food Store, U.S. Foods Chef Store. I'm getting a combination wrong. It's something like that. The Terry's cut is, I think it's part of the shoulder. I've never seen that outside of the cryovac container there. I still haven't purchased that. What is that all about?
Yeah, so the Terrace Major is off of it looks like a tiny tenderloin. It's really small, they're about a pound a piece, and they come off of the shoulder clod, which is in the chuck. And it is just a piece of muscle in that chuck that has that is super tender. So if you like a beef tenderloin, this is just like a small, cheaper version of a beef tenderloin. And um, at my chef store, I can get them. The prices went up a little bit recently, but you can get them for like $9, $10 a pound, something like that, in a big bag. And all you have to do is take a little bit of the silver skin off, and it's pretty good. But you can do everything you can do with beef tenderloin. You can do it with this smaller version of the Terrace Major, which is also one of my favorites because, man, it tastes so good because it has that beefy flavor of the chuck, but it also is pretty tender for being a chuck in the chuck.
I've heard amazing things about it. I still haven't tried it, so I'm definitely going to. That might be one of the next ones I get. Can you talk about the different parts of the animal and that balance between the tenderness and the flavor?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, what happens is with you run this balance of tenderness and flavor. So you talk about like the amount of work that a muscle gets. That's going to increase the flavor. I think so. But it's also going to increase the toughness of it. There's that old adage that says the most tender cuts on the cow are furthest away from the hoof and the horn. So if you can kind of like picture that, where the tenderloin, the ribeye, the strip is, those are the most tender cuts, and those are kind of in that area, that upper middle area of the cow, in which doesn't get a ton of work. But you're going to have a little less flavor that way. So the chuck, which is the shoulder, the round, which is the back end leg, the short ribs, the flank steak, those all get a lot of work, those muscle groups. So they have an increased amount of flavor, but they're tougher. So you kind of have to dance this balance of what do I want and how do I cook it? Because I can't cook a short rib the same way that I can cook a beef tenderloin. So you have to kind of dance with all these flavors and textures as far as the cow is concerned.
Okay, what would be considered like kind of the most worked, the most lean, maybe has the most flavor? Would that be like a rump or a London broil or something like that? Like, what are the best things to do with those leaner cuts? I'm thinking in my mind like low and slow with that kind of thing.
Yeah, so if you're looking for the leanest cuts, you're gonna look in the round, and then those are pretty lean cuts. And if you want to do like roast beef with that, like a roast beef lunch meat kind of thing, which I love, nice medium rare roast beef lunch meat is amazing, and you can't find anywhere else unless you make it yourself. But like those cuts for them round are great. If you're looking for a little bit fattier cut that you're going to need to braise, then you can go to the kind of the short plate, the short ribs. Those are always good. Like I said, I feel like I need to like I'm the person for the chuck, so I love the chuck. You can braise the chuck roast till it falls apart. So it just depends. Like the beef offers so much variety and in the different muscle groups, it's just amazing.
Yeah. I love that you focus so much on the chuck because you're right. It gives you, it seems to give you everything you need and nothing that you don't, which I really appreciate for such a good price. Are there any others that you find are a little bit underrated as far as, for the price, what we should be getting? And the flip side of that, what are some cuts that you believe are just way overrated that people waste money on?
Yeah. Well, so my favorite overrated cut. So this is a great question. My overrated cut is the tomahawk ribeye. So it, I have fallen prey to the tomahawk ribeye as also it looks great on Instagram. It looks great on your grill. You put this thing down, but you are paying for a bone in ribeye and paying extra for that extra bone. So that is that is the biggest overrated cut in my opinion. again, if I too can fall prey to the caveman, I need a ribeye on a stick kind of thing. As far as underrated cuts, I think there's just a ton of underrated cuts. I think like I said before, the Terrace Major is one of my favorite cuts. It is underrated. It's hard to find, and that's probably why it is underrated, because people can't find it. I do like a good short rib. I like a good braised short rib. Trying to think about some other things. All the things I've already talked about in the chuck, those are my like bread and butter. Because I think especially for your audience, people who are on the carnivore diet, and like you hear from social media that I need to eat ribeyes every day. Like I'm just gonna have a big old ribeye every day and be good to go. Well, that's great until you go to the grocery store and you realize that's like $30. What if I could do the same thing for a much smaller price? So there are so many other cuts that you can do that will be a better value for you than a ribeye. But ribeyes are great on a special occasion, but like day to day, it's kind of like, let's do something different.
Yeah, and obviously price is a big concern, but also as this is your goal, is to make this simple for people. That's what most people on the carnivore diet are looking for. How can I do this really simply? We're so full and satiated during the day. Oftentimes people eat just once or maybe twice a day anyway, and you learn. Like I used to love cooking, man. Like I would shop 5 days a week. I would buy all kinds of exotic ingredients and all these things and try different recipes. And just like you, like that's fun. Like I enjoyed that, and that was fun. And then it's like you realize I'm spending so much time, I'm spending so much money, I'm throwing so much of this crap out at the end of the week. Like the value again of time and money is so high when you're making recipes that way. It becomes so difficult for people on meal plans that call for exotic ingredients and all these things to be able to follow. One of the benefits of what you're preaching is let's make this dead simple, really easy, and then you can make it more complicated if you wish.
And like you can play with flavors and textures even on the carnivore diet. Like you can take something that's been shredded, like you shredded a chuck roast or something, and the next day you put some beef tallow in a pan, like put it in, like almost make like a little pancake or a hash brown kind of thing, and take that meat and just crisp it up on both sides, and you have a completely different experience. Even if it's the same thing, completely different experience.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. Let's talk equipment. What kinds of things do you recommend that people use to be able to, get into this? We can maybe start with like the most minimal and then say like, if you have the means, this would be nice. This will eventually pay for itself, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that, of course, are some good knives, a good cutting board, and getting all that so you can cut your own meat at home. I think that's the biggest thing. That's where we're starting from the source. That's it. You're like, how can I do that? And once you get that, and you don't have to spend a ton of money on a knife. Like you just need a good, hardworking stainless steel knife that you can get on Amazon. I mean, it's as long as it's nice and sharp and you have a way to sharpen it, you're good to go. A cast iron skillet, I think, is essential because again, we're trying to go. That cast iron really takes that heat and really evenly distributes it, so you can get a nice good sear. Because again, on the carnivore diet, people are really looking for texture. Like you gotta have something that's crispy, crunchy, all that stuff, and that's how you get that. I found, contrary to popular belief, I don't know, but I found the air fryer to be a good help with this, especially when dealing with my family. I have 4 kids, and so I'm having a separate dinner, like. So being able to just chunk some meat into the air fryer has been a really good way to deal with that really quickly. Let's see, what are some other things? You need, if you're going to break down your own meat, you need a good meat grinder. Whether you use the attachments that go on like a KitchenAid mixer, or whether you use a fully stand meat grinder, I think that's super important, because all the trim we have, we can now make into ground beef. We can make into beef tallow. We can do a lot of other things with that, and that meat grinder is going to come in handy very, very much. So those are, I don't know, I probably could go on all day. Smoker, like grills, smokers, things like that. Other ways you can cook meat without having to like dirty up pans. And because I'm like got 4 kids. We have to think about how we can quickly and efficiently get this done. So being able to use a pellets, whether it's a pellet grill, whether it's a charcoal grill, whatever you have, smoker. I was kind of interested because when I looked at some of the carnivore Facebook groups, I noticed that there wasn't a lot of people smoking things, and I love barbecue, and I threw a brisket on this last weekend, and it has, sustained me. I've had the leftovers for several days now, and all I did was put some salt on it and smoked it, and it was delicious. So I think maybe that smoking maybe also be a underrated technique that some carnivore dieters or keto dieters aren't utilizing.
Yeah, I love that. It's an investment for sure to get a smoker, but I've got a Traeger. We use it all the time. There was a phase where my wife was literally eating an entire brisket by herself every single week. So
Oh,
I spent 2 years every weekend making a brisket. So I got pretty good at trimming the thing up and getting it seasoned really well, following Aaron Franklin's recipe from Austin, Texas at Franklin's Barbecue. But yeah, those are all really good tips and tricks as far as the equipment goes. I think the air fryer is really great also for reheating things. Like I like to cook, if I'm going to do chicken, I'll do it all in a big batch, and pulling one out and like reheating it. It seems to keep the texture a little bit better, which I love. And another thing that I've tried, I have to say, like a vacuum sealer. Can you make a good case for a really good vacuum sealer? Again, a bit of an investment up front, but oh my goodness, can save so much money.
oh yeah. So vacuum sealers are essential gear. Whether it is your traditional bar vacuum sealer, where it's like a food saver, or whether you do a chamber. So I like a chamber vacuum sealer because that's what I use in the butcher shop. That's what I've used in other commercial settings. But those are essential to make sure you can take all this meat and save it, because this, like, you're not going to eat, we cut a ribeye down and you get 14 ribeyes. You're not going to eat 14 ribeyes in a couple of days. So vacuum sealing is very, very important. So like I'm saying, like there's several different, depending on your price point, depending on how much you're vacuum sealing, there's different things you can do. But vacuum sealing can take, like, you can take a vacuum sealed ribeye and you can put it in the refrigerator for like 3 to 4 weeks. And if you put that in the freezer with really no, degradation of the meat, it'll last for over a year. And so that's also an essential piece of gear. Thank you for mentioning it.
Yeah, of course. And you also can't really mention a vacuum sealer without mentioning a sous vide. So I know you've been on Sean Baker's podcast. I don't know if you follow him online, but he has these videos where, he'll explain something on carnivore and he'll be eating this steak, and the steak looks absolutely amazing. And I just wanted to learn exactly the way he did his. And so he puts his steak into a sous vide at whatever temperature. I put mine in at about 118, 119 for about 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours. I pull them out, I put them back in the fridge, and then when I'm ready to use them, I just warm them up. And I found one of those open-faced grills that has the flame on the top with adjustable shelves, and it gets quite hot. I think 1500 degrees. And so you just turn this thing on with propane. It shoots flames out of the front. The front's open, and you just put a steak on, sear it on one side, pull it out, sear it on the other. The thing was only like $150 on Amazon, and with the sous vide, it's a perfect match for what the kind of steak that I like. Do you use either of those tools as well?
Yeah, so I sous vide all the time. Like that's been I've done that for a long time, and it has so many uses for even taking like super tough cuts of meat and making them more tender. Like I did a chuck roast where I sous vide it for 24 hours, and it came out and was tender and beautiful, and it was crazy. I've done an eye around for 24 hours where it just like almost like, because that's a really tough cut of meat, like a lean tough cut, and it just like cut like butter. So it really is a great technique for people to use. And now with all the technology that's come out, it's really cost effective. Like you can get a whole sous vide setup for $100 bucks, $150 or something like that. And it makes everything just perfect. You can make it exactly how you want it. That's the great part about it.
I think I bought the Instant Pot brand sous vide stick like 6 or 7 years ago for like $50. And we just have that dedicated like plastic, water container that sits in the corner. It's out of the way. You hardly even know it's there. And yeah, we've used it almost every day for 6 or 7 years. It's lasted all this long. Like definitely paid for itself for like you said, perfect temperature every time.
Yeah, and like you can do eggs in there, like you can soft boil eggs or hard boiled eggs in there, like whatever you want to do in there. I mean, it really does. It really is a great piece of equipment.
Yeah. So this weekend we're going on a hiking trip actually, and I kind of experimented with this and came up with this hack where when I go backpacking or camping, I don't like the backpacking meals. I like to eat real food. And so what I do is I'll take whatever meal that I want. It could be eggs and bacon. It could be, mix for like a taco mix or steak or chicken or whatever. And I will cook it fully. I'll vacuum seal it. And then basically wherever I am, like I'm planning on doing this on this trip, I'm basically using that. I'll use like a pot of water for sous vide, and I'll just turn it to like a medium temperature to warm up the food in its own container. And then all I have to do is cut it open. It's all self-contained. I don't have any dishes. I don't make any mess. The food is warm and delicious. That's a really cool trick that I've used for camping and times that you don't want to make a big mess somewhere.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's super convenient.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned something earlier. I have to say, I bought a meat grinder in 2019. I'll let you guess over under on the number one, how many times I've used it. Why am I so intimidated about grinding my own beef?
Yeah, so meat grinding it's very simple process, and you just got to make sure everything is cold to first start out. You make sure you assemble the whole thing correctly, and other than that, it's pretty simple to use. People complain about like, oh, how do I clean it and all this stuff. It's not that hard to clean. You just run some water through it, soap and water. It's easy to go. The good part about it is we have to use all of this trim. So like to really get if you're really going to like sell out, you're really going to do all these butchery projects, right? I'm going to cut my own ribeye. There are trim, there's cut downs, there's pieces of fat, there's pieces of meat, there's other things that are useful that you can grind. And that's how butcher shops make their money. So like the big problem, the reason that butcher shops, here we go on a tangent, but the reason that you can't find a local butcher shop anymore, or it's harder and harder to find, is because that business model is very, very difficult to do. So if I just sit and sell ribeyes and strips and fillets, which is what most butcher shops sell, then if I do all that, then there's very little margin in there, so I can keep the lights on. So what they'll do is we cut it all down, we take the trim, we go ahead and make ground beef, and then we sell that ground beef, and it's better than anything you can have at a grocery store because it's fresh, it's all different kinds of cuts, and that's how they make a lot of their money. So we can do that at home. I kind of like almost make your home like a home butcher shop, right? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to Costco. I'm going to go get a strip. I'm going to go get a whole ribeye, a whole tenderloin, and then I'm going to make my own ground beef from all that. And I've essentially made my own butcher shop where I don't have to go find a local butcher shop. But you definitely should give grinding another chance because the ground beef in there is so good because you make a hamburger or you make a ground beef from that. It's just the flavor is unmatched because it's so fresh.
Yeah, interesting. Do you need to consider the different cuts, or is it just really like overthinking it to think like you want a mix of brisket or the chuck and parts of the chuck? Is that overthinking it?
So what I do is, I have a little bit of a ratio. So 80% of my lean meat is going to be from either the chuck, the sirloin, or the round. And this is the way I do it. So you make that as your base. And then the other 20% of your lean meat is going to be from all the extra cuts. So the ribeye, your strips, your lean meat from that. And then I will take it and add fat to it if I need to. So depending on what kind of fat ratio you're looking for, then we'll add fat to it. So, because if you make a ground beef out of tenderloin scraps, it's going to be mushy, and because it's so tender, once it grinds, it's going to be a little bit mushy. You need something that is your backbone, your sturdy meats, your chuck, sirloin, and round. Those are going to give you that texture you need and the flavor you need. And then you can use your trim in that kind of proportion to make a good ground beef. And one other tip I use is like, if you have, so usually they come with 2 dies. So the die is like the little round thing that has all the holes in it. So usually there's a bigger one and a smaller one. So what I will do is put it through the bigger die that you have, put it through that first, and then put it through the smaller die. And then you get that good texture you're looking for.
Okay, that is really, really helpful. As far as adding fat, is there a particular type of fat that works? Like, is brisket trim that's a little bit more firm? Does that work? Does it need to be more like fat that's like marbled in? And how do you know when you have like a decent ratio of fat to kind of lean meat?
Yeah, so when you're cutting, like trimming a brisket or trimming a ribeye or whatever, you're going to have this hard white fat. That is the good fat that you want to put into your ground beef. Also, I will separate as much as I can the lean from the fat. That way I'll put my lean through first, put some fat through, mix it together, and kind of look what the color looks like. Like the best thing you can do is to look at go to the grocery store and look at what 80-20 ground beef looks like, or 75-25, or whatever you buy ground beef at, and look at what that color looks like. Now just go in and even take a picture with your phone, because then you can run it through your grinder and say, oh, then I can estimate where I'm at as far as the lean to fat ratio.
That is awesome advice. I love that. And then you've got a video that explains how you can also, still have, like I would have all the time trimming all these briskets, you'd have so much fat left over. There's other uses for that, including making tallow.
Yes, yeah, beef tallow is awesome. Also, as I'm doing the carnivore diet, I'm realizing that if you can't use avocado oil and olive oil and all these other oils, how do you cook things? Well, that beef tallow has been tremendous help. You just take that traditionally beef tallow is from the fat that's around the kidneys of the beef, right? That's your traditional beef tallow. You can render any fat from the cow and make beef tallow. So that's what I do, is I will take the hard fat from around the ribeyes, the strips, all the extra fat I have, grind it, and then make beef tallow with it. So, I don't know if it's technically beef tallow or if it's technically just rendered beef fat. I don't know, but it still tastes amazing.
Yeah, it does. It sure does. Oh man. Okay. Well, thank you for so many of these like really practical tips. Let's talk about your book. When did you decide you wanted to put this all into book form?
Yeah, so last year I did a lot of like just saying yes to everything. So things would come across my desk and I would say, yes, let's do that. And Victory Belt Publishing came up to me and said, would you like to make a cookbook? And I said, sure, let's do it. And I had no idea how much work it actually was. So we spent the next year working on this cookbook, and it's been a labor of love. I will say it is basically my entire culinary career as far as beef is concerned in a book. So each chapter is a different primal cut. So instead of doing like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or appetizers and entrees, this book is broken apart by the primal cut. So we'll start with the chuck, and then I'll show you how to break it down through picture form and walk you through that process. And then I will have recipes in that chapter for that primal cut, all the meat that comes out of primal cut. And we went through all 9 primal cuts, and man, it's kind of crazy. But
how about the photography? Did you do like your own photography?
Yeah, so I have to give it up to my wife. I'm really bad at like anything that, I think I'm colorblind. I don't know. I think I'm really bad at everything that's has to do with visuals. So she like helped me out, and she took all the pictures. She did a lot of the writing. Like it was funny because we're doing the recipes to take the picture, and she'd ask me like, why are we doing this recipe? And I'm like, I don't know. It's because this is the story behind it. And she'd be like, okay. And she would make my crazy thoughts and crazy words into something that sounded really good. So I have to give it up to her because she was tremendous in that process.
That's amazing. I'm sitting next to several cookbooks. A few of them are carnivore specific. I like how much everybody has like a different kind of way of doing things, a different flavor. Some focus on different sauces. Some are like carnivore kind of products that maybe like carnivore bread that you can make versus some that are just a little bit more simple. But one of my favorite cookbooks called Meat Illustrated right here again is not carnivore specific, but is broken down very similar to what you're describing. Like it's every section of the cow, how, where it is, what cuts you get out of it, and then a bunch of recipes. And I have to say, like conceptually, that was a lot easier for me to like wrap my head around and understand. Oh, this is why this tastes a certain way. These are the different cuts, how you get them. Even within like a chuck roll, like yes, you can do Denver steaks. Yes, you can do the other things with it, but there's more than one way that you can break that down. And I like that approach quite a bit. And so I'm glad you approached it that way. And yeah, every author I've ever talked to said it was way more work than they ever would have assumed.
I think the publishers get you because you have a call with them and they're like, oh yeah, you can, no problem, you got this, man. And then it's like, oh yeah, and then I'm 6 months in and going like, I am overwhelmed, but so my cookbook is not necessarily a carnivore cookbook. It's more of my interpretation of all of the stories and all of the recipes I've accumulated throughout my career. And I would say like out of everything, 30% are probably strict carnivore. And then another 20% off of that can be adapted or probably mostly going to be adapted. But there's a lot of like basic skills, like how to grill a ribeye, how to use open fire, how to use a smoker. Like there are definite skills in there that anyone can use on their people who just enjoy beef and enjoy meat. It's all beef. So that was the other crazy thing that sounded like a good idea at the time. And then once I'm going through it, I'm like, how am I going to create 100 recipes that have to do with beef? But we did it, and I was pretty proud of it.
I love that you're targeting that audience because I think you and I would agree beef is superfood. All the other things, seafood and pork and all these other things, those are fine. Beef is a superfood. It has everything you need and nothing you don't. It's so versatile, so delicious. Most people, that's what they end up craving on this anyway. And it's like your family, right? Like not everybody is going to want to be on a carnivore diet, but anybody would benefit from getting a little bit more beef in their diet, I would argue. And so having it be open to anybody and just making it really accessible and saying like, yeah, you want to add some vegetables to this, you want to add a starch to this, like knock yourself out. That's totally fine. You can, use this wonderfully as a carnivore, or you can, use this as a base and then expand outward for other people that you're cooking with, because so many people, find themselves in your situation where you're making your own meal and it feels very isolating and lonely, where again, the way you're projecting this is you can use this as a base, add whatever you want to it and make it tasty for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Tell us about I don't know the official name. I just signed up for it the other day. The Primal Cuts Club. Is that what we're calling it? Okay.
Yeah. So it's the Primal Cuts Club. It's primalcutsclub.com. And basically it's for people who want to go a little step further. So for YouTube, I have to I don't know. You got to play the YouTube game a lot. You got to make sure you have a good thumbnail and title and hook and all these other things. I have to, I have to cut some things out because people will find the larger audience will find it boring, but I'm trying to look for the select few who really dig on this stuff, really want to go next level. So what I've done is that we made the Primal Cuts Club. It is I have tutorials in there for all the things that I normally do. So all your steak cuts, all your beef cuts, but it's like a culinary class because I have an overhead shot that I can just get down, and we just get down to business, so there's no fluff, there's no ads, there's no nothing. It's just getting down to business. So we also have 2 times a month we get together for Q&As, so you can talk to me directly. And I can bring you up on the virtual stage and we can answer your questions. And then we have a community where people can post their successes. Hey, I just cut my first ribeye. I just cut my first chuck roll. This is what it looks like. We're toying around. It's really new, so I'm really toying around with like what we're gonna do next. So a lot of people have said like, if I video, can you kind of like tell me what I did wrong or right? And so we're gonna work on that also going forward. So it's just a fun kind of side project of like I said, it's for the people who want to go to the next level and don't just want the kind of that surface like YouTube video.
Got it. Okay. And you just announced all the days and times, which I was able to put in my calendar. Some will work, some won't work, but everything seems to be recorded. So I can always go back and watch different things. And yeah, even the one that I jumped on the other night, I was working at the time editing another podcast, but I was able to just kind of listen in the background, and I was able to type in a few questions, which you responded to, which I found very, very helpful. So it's a really cool concept. I'm glad you decided to do it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's doing it out there, or there's not a lot. I didn't know of anyone doing it out there. So again, I'm a teacher at heart. So the more that I'm teaching people, that's where I get most happiness from. So it's just another way for me to teach people and actually get some results and get to know their names and people who are them. So
Anybody in the meat world, whether they're carnivore or not, seems to be very friendly and happy. And whether somebody's doing a lot of barbecue, or whether somebody is doing a full-on carnivore diet, all the people that were in that group seemed really like very nice people and really enthusiastic, like you said.
yeah, they are. It's a great group. So and
That's awesome.
we're just getting more people in there, and like I said, it's brand new. So we're just doing all kinds of fun stuff.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay, getting back to you and your experience with the carnivore diet. You said you had been keto before. How did that go? How did you even find out about a ketogenic diet, and what things were you doing back then?
Yeah, so it was a couple years ago, and just trying to lose weight and thing like looking into that podcasts, like all the stuff, and I I felt pretty good on the ketogenic diet. I know it was a little bit difficult because again, it's different than what my family does. So I kind of went in and out, in and out, and I've always done kind of high protein. I've always been meat focused. So those things have worked for me in the past. So jumping to a carnivore diet was not a big jump for me because again, I I can just eat meat. Like that's not an issue. And I like vegetables. I like salads. I like all that stuff. But if I can definitely just do the meat portion of it.
Got it. Okay. I will be so curious to hear what you think about vegetables in another few weeks.
Oh,
Very, very, very consistently, I've heard so many people, myself included, like, yeah, I do like vegetables. What they probably liked more than just like the leaves in the salad was maybe the oil and the avocado and the protein that came with it. And I've seen so many people just have their taste of vegetables just drop right out. So I'll be very curious to hear if that happens to you. And I don't think avoiding vegetables is the worst thing. I do think they can cause problems for some people, the certain kinds that can accumulate. But I'll be curious to see if that taste ends up dropping out for you.
I do have another quick question. Again, I'm going to use this as kind of my carnivore coaching session. But like, what do you think about the 30 days? Like what I've gotten a lot of comments on my last video where I had an update video of my first week, and again, I've couched this as a 30-day challenge kind of thing. Um, what do you think is the minimum amount of days that I'm going to see, or a person would see some other results, some more energy, some more like the thing? How how long do you think that would take for you to see some of those extra benefits other than just weight loss and that kind of thing? Because personally, I have I don't have a lot of digestion issues. I have a little bit of heartburn kind of thing. I'd like for that to go away. I have a snoring thing, which my wife would like to go away. So I don't know if that's just a weight loss thing or whatever. But like again, how long do you think the extra benefits besides just weight loss take effect?
That's a great question. I love it. But in my experience, 30 days is enough for most people that came to the diet for weight loss to not care about weight loss anymore. And like when somebody takes a step into keto, it's a good step. My energy's a little better. I lost some weight. I still may be dealing with this other thing, but the step where people go from keto to carnivore, there's like this bizarre list of things. And it's not even things that are going to occur to you in the beginning or occur to most people, but it's like, wait a second, it's been a week and I haven't snored. What's going on? Or I had my elbow itched for whatever reason, or I always got athlete's foot, and it just like it's gone now, and I don't know what happened. It went away, or my breathing is better. I never get a sunburn anymore. It's just this weird list of other things. It's like so many people that I coach start carnivore because of the weight loss, but they end up realizing like, okay, the weight loss, the fat loss, that's happening in the background, and that's great, but I'm having so many of these other benefits that I'm willing to keep going. And that was certainly my personal experience. I have to say, when I started April 2019, I lost a few pounds of fat. My muscle mass went up a little bit, but it really was the mental benefits. And to this day, still is the mental benefit of like, if I deviate. So a good example, like we went to the farmer's market a few weeks ago. I bought a melon. Melons around here are amazing. It wasn't like your run of the mill melon. It was like a canary melon or an Israeli melon or whatever. And I ate a quarter of it during the day, and then went back at night and ate the entire thing. So I have a bit of like a sugar addiction thing, and my anxiety came back and I slept like crap. And that's just kind of what happens. I can't stop myself if I have a little. I find that I can be abstinent and avoid all that. But having the reminder of what it's like to be spinning in a bunch of weird thoughts and having that anxiety come back, for me, is a good motivator to stay more on the diet than not. And I would be very surprised in 30 days if you didn't have a good list of at least 5 or 6 different things that you were noticing as far as benefits, along with the weight loss. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah. I just kind of like making sure that like, okay, is it like what's the best protocol? Because I just kind of, just kind of did this on a whim, and like I said in my last video, like I went cold turkey. So we went one day I'm normal, or like normal, whatever normal is, but like one day standard American diet, and then next day only meat. And again, I want to make sure that I'm giving it as much of a chance as I can, so I can see the benefits, because I've already seen benefits. I just want to know, like, okay, do I need 60 days? Do I need 90 days? Like, I'm sure it's one of those things where the longer the better, but like, I don't know. It's interesting to get a perspective from someone who has coached other people and have gone through it themselves, and just, I need that perspective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a good point. And this is maybe just self-selective, because I don't talk to people who the carnivore diet failed for them. And maybe they're out there and I'm not talking to them. And maybe people go carnivore and then all of a sudden end up vegan, which I've never heard of, but maybe they're out there. In my experience, I don't know many people that got to day 31 and they were like, whew, done with that, going right back to standard American. You know what I mean? Like it seems to just kind of self propel, and whether somebody mixes something else in or not, I don't see many people quitting on day 31. Usually there's so many positives that they just on their own want to keep going. And you did mention something in your 1 week follow-up video, which again was awesome because you included the clip of the coaching, which I really appreciated. But something that you mentioned was actually in your first week, your weight did not go down; it actually went up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So yeah, it did actually go up, which is kind of like what happens when I do start a different eating plan. When I did keto, when I've done just high protein, or if it fits your macros, I've done a lot of things. And then usually that first week, I will find that my weight will go up. So I gained a couple pounds this first week. And I don't know if it's just my body saying like, hey, what's going on, kind of thing, and holding on to stuff. But like, so spoiler alert for people who want to watch the week number 2, it has gone back down, and back to kind of normal, and lost weight from there. So, but that first week, man, it was kind of hard to like step on that scale. I'm like, okay, well, is that working? Is that not working? What's going on? But yes, it did go up, and I have no idea why.
It's not too uncommon. There's somebody in our space who's also a carnivore coach who recommends um, priming, feasting, and fasting. And part of priming is like when somebody's first getting onto carnivore, he makes them eat three meals in a day. And the first meal has to come before coffee. So somebody can drink coffee, but they have to eat a meal before the coffee. And the idea is you're giving yourself so many nutrients from the most nutrient available source that like after a week or two, most people are like, get me off of this. I cannot eat any more meat. This is way too much. Like, but and you do see a little bit of a rise in body weight initially, but then it starts to crash down. And his thinking is like your body is using all of the nutrients, building up lean tissue. I would not be surprised if your body composition changed in the first week and maybe your weight went up because you added some muscle, maybe some bone density. Maybe it was just simply, getting your electrolytes correct and there was a little bit more water in your body or whatever. Like there's a lot of things that go into it, but that's one way to approach it is just really overstuff yourself in the beginning and then taper down to where you're in a pattern of feasting and fasting where you do eat. When you're hungry, you get into this place of you're comfortably stuffed, then you stop, and now you're just naturally fasting. And people get into that pattern of like 1 to 2 days a week, or 1 to 2 days, 1 to 2 times a day of eating becomes really common, and it's just so easy to fast for the rest of the day.
And so for me, for that first week too, like my first meal was eggs and ground beef. I'm like, this is what sounds good to me, and it was great. And I didn't eat for the almost the rest of the day. I got real hungry at 2 or 3 o'clock, and that's kind of what I've settled into. I have a meal about 10, and then I don't eat again until 2 or 3. I will have a light meal at the end of the day. I mean, I think for this second week, it really has become more of a habit and more of. I was super surprised. So this is one of those shocking things that I learned on this first week was how much of my eating is just habitual. Like how much of it is because I just woke up and it's time to eat breakfast, or it's 12 o'clock and it's time to eat lunch. You know, I was really surprised about how, because I don't know. I was just really surprised on how my brain would say I was like time to eat, and I would be in like the refrigerator. I'm like, but I'm not hungry. I check back in and be like, I'm not really hungry. I'm just kind of like, this is what I do at noon. I go and I try to find something out, out of the fridge. So that was one of the more surprising things to me is how much of my eating already is just habitual, like on the clock.
Yeah, very interesting. I've been working with my dad to help improve his nutrition. We got him to stop bringing certain snacks to his desk, and sure enough, he reaches over out of habit as he's working, and like is feeling it gets confused for a second that something's not there because it is pure habit. And you mentioned something else that I didn't want to miss as well. You mentioned
Yeah.
at 2 to 3 o'clock where you're starting to get a little bit hungry. Have you been surprised about how the hunger has changed? For you, and I'll give you an example, and maybe you can relate to this. But one of our podcast guests told me several years ago, it used to be that my hunger was a bully. Whatever I was doing, it didn't matter. I could have been, in a project. Hunger would come in, punch me in the face, steal my milk money, and make me pay attention to the hunger until it went away. Now hunger is just this nice, lovely friend who comes by and says, "Hey, what's up, Brad? How are you doing? Do you want to do lunch now? You look busy. Maybe I'll come back in like 5 or 6 hours. Not a big deal. Whatever." Have you noticed that kind of shift in the nature of your hunger as well?
So I will say in week 1, I like the bottom dropped out of my hunger. Like I would eat the big breakfast, like the big first meal, 2 or 3 o'clock. It would be like, what has happened? I've never eaten before, and then so I had that visceral like that is a lot. I need to eat something right now. And then this week, the second week has been a lot more even keel. I will say that where it's been a lot more even keel. Like yesterday, I just like I had that big. I still have that breakfast, that first meal, but then that second meal really wasn't it wasn't as much of a necessity. It was like, oh, okay, I can eat now. Hey, I have some time. Let's go ahead and knock out this meal. And then, you know, I I made some beef jerky for a video. Actually, it was pretty funny. And there was one day I just ate the beef jerky for most of it, so it doesn't have any sugar, nothing like just basically meat and salt and whatever. And I just ate a bunch of beef jerky for the day. Like that was just what felt good to me, and that's what I did. And I mean, and I don't know, it just I didn't have a lot of hunger spikes and hunger things. I just kind of felt even keel throughout the day. So I don't know. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to intuitively do this. I don't know if maybe if I'm not getting the results I'm looking for, maybe I need to do some tracking. What do you feel about tracking? Is that like a thing?
Great question. I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, is tracking like a thing on this? Like, I know like other diets are like, get your app and track all your meals. I know some people don't, some people do. Kind of what's your feeling on that?
I generally lean towards no. I've been doing this for 18 years now as a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. Tracking is problematic on both ends because you really don't exactly know what's in the foods anyway, and they can be way off. And you don't know exactly what your expenditure is. I use metabolic carts in my career so we can measure somebody's metabolism, but even then, that was an estimate of how many calories you would burn. We don't know how much you burn. We don't know how much you eat. It's problematic on both ends. And so by eating a carnivore diet, we know that you can be intuitive, like you said, eat as much as you like, get comfortably full, don't eat again until you get hungry again. And as long as you're following that pattern, what you're doing is you're trusting your own innate system, your own body to tell you what sounds good, how much of it sounds good. That could be different day to day and week to week. So unless somebody needs some like awareness of, no, you're actually eating like 18 servings of cereal a day or something, you know what I mean? Like, unless, and if they need something like that, I would recommend them doing it temporarily. But I think the best part of a carnivore diet is to do it exactly the way you are doing it and just be really intuitive with it. That's another really good question.
It's hard to overeat on steak, right?
Exactly. You do. You get to this point, like a pound and a half for me. It doesn't matter what I did during the day. I can't go more than that. So yeah, exactly. It's really hard to overeat that. Brad, this has been amazing. I'm so happy for you. Everything that you've told me as far as the diet goes are expected results and they're really good signs. So that's, I think, just a green light. Keep doing what you're doing. You're going to be fine. Other than that, on behalf of like our community, the more, again, ketogenic and carnivore community, your content really helps us out. I hope a lot of people join the club and go to another length of like getting some help, but you offer so much stuff for free, and we're all very much looking forward to the book coming out this fall. I believe in November is the target date for that. So so grateful for you and all the work that you do to make this really accessible and affordable and simple for us. For now, where can people go to find you and connect with you and your work?
So again, just YouTube is where I mainly have content. So Butcher Wizard on YouTube, and then the primalcutsclub.com. And, if I'm on Instagram and some other things, but again, I spend most of my time on YouTube, and that's kind of it. So
awesome. Yeah, we'll have that all tagged up in the show notes so people can find that. And again, Brad, I'm on a personal note, having watched so much of you and your face and that kitchen that I'm looking at right now, it's such an honor and a pleasure to be able to talk to you. You've helped me out a lot and helped out many, many people out there. So your gifts are very much needed, and we appreciate you sharing them with the world. So thank you so very much for everything that you do. And thank you for taking time out of your busy day to chat with us today. We really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Casey, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was an honor. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.